See, this is the 4G I was using.
Yeah.
Up until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It just felt...
Well, if that's constricting, then the 3G might be exactly the thing for you. Here, take a shot. It's not, at whatever stage of the game you're at, this is not going to make make a difference in what you're doing.
I don't think so. Maybe what we can do is I can stay on this today and then I can get one when I get out of here.
Take it with you and you can send it back to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's great. So basically also, what would you do if I was a first-time student for you? Not a beginner, but
Yeah.
you know, I just showed up at your door. I said, here's your usual fee of $150. And I'd like some lessons, George.
Keep them right there. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, let's do that then. Okay. Why don't you put that someplace where it's not going to fall on your slide. Now, what do you got there? Is that an Everett's?
This is a Courtois do now?
Okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll do the kind of thing that I normally do, kind of as a diagnostic, except that I'm assuming that you're like a high school kid.
Okay.
And I'm going to say to you, have you ever done lip slurs before? You say yes, right? Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this. This is a pretty standard lip slur that a lot of guys use. Let's try that together. 1, 2. Now here's where I ask you to play an F in first position. A high F, a middle F rather. Okay? I'll play it together. Now play that same note in sixth, the same note. Okay, now let's play it. 2, ready? Now let's make sure that G is in tune. Play it. Yeah. Now I would suggest that you not move so quickly from high to low, but that you do it slowly, make small adjustments, because you're really in the ballpark, but you have to stay within the baselines, and instead what you're doing is kind of running out into the outfield. Yeah. So let's try that note and adjust it until it works. Now that's that is the position that I find people often are having a problem with. Okay,
I'm too high in it.
Often.
That's what I felt like.
Yeah. 1, 2, slur. Tuning the horn. When you tune your B flat, do you tune it right up against the bumper?
No.
You tune it a little bit off.
A little bit
That's
off.
excellent. Now, I want you to play a middle B flat, and then I want you to play immediately after that a low B flat, and don't adjust the slide. Okay? Here you go. You're playing the high middle B. Now I want you to adjust the slide. So we're going to play the high B flat, get it in tune, the low B flat, get it in tune. little secret of the trombone world is that the second partial has to be brought down.
Really?
So when people play the Mozart Requiem, and they play they have to lip down when they get there instead of and it kind of settles right in.
So the octave, the two octaves I'm playing is not. You have to adjust.
That's right.
You should adjust.
Yeah. Now, I'll introduce you to something. We have time. I mean, do you have I have 2 hours or?
Yeah. Take what you, whatever you're willing to give is
sure.
where I am.
Oh, then I'm leaving. Okay. This is the newest. First of all, I'm not a toy guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a technology guy, and I'm not a tuner guy. I find most tuners don't pick up the trombone very well, and I just don't like the idea of how people use them. I see people with them on their stands, and orchestras don't play in tempered tuning. They play in equal temperament. They play in Pythagorean and mean tone, whatever combination it is. So, play a B flat. Now this tuner has a lot of good features. This is going to be in equal temperament. It says down there, but you can adjust it to the various. In fact, we're going to forget this part.
Anyhow, the lower B flat needs to be lower. The second partial.
Yeah, and I was going to show you that on here, but
I believe you. I could hear it when we did it.
Okay, so that's one of the things that I would point out to somebody as they were doing this. Now, then you would work on, of course, getting the third partial down, because people don't realize that the third partial is also sharp.
Mm-hmm.
As is its multiple, the sixth partial and the 12th partial.
Okay, I got to do my math here.
Yeah.
Where am I on 6?
F.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first partial is B flat. Second partial is B flat. Next partial is B flat. The octave B flat. So
right.
The D is the fourth partial. Oops, wrong. The D is the fifth partial. And a funny thing about that is that in the first position, it's sharp.
Right.
Second position, it's a little sharp. Third position, it's very little sharp. And fourth position is flat.
And I never could figure out why. I know that it's not it's not consistent over the whole spectrum.
What we have to do is find ourselves an acoustician who knows what the hell's going on, because I don't. Okay, so the next slur I would do is this. So let's try that. 1, 2, ready. Listen for my C sharp. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll play the drum. Okay. Ready. Make sure that E sound, that the E is right. Now play it in second. Now in seventh. Great. Now. Okay, we're gonna play that, which is the fifth to the sixth partial, and you go out for the top note every time.
Extend for the top note.
1, 2, 3. Listen. Yeah, so you tend not to go out far enough for sixth position.
Right.
And it could be the new horn. When I got this horn, I discovered all my sixth position notes were sharp, because the horn, the slide is just different than a box slide. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3. one is that it's the third of the chord, so we know we bring
Right,
that down
yeah.
14 cents. But the other thing is that D tends to be sharp. So by using drones during the slurs, the students get used to not only getting one note in tune, all of the notes in tune.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then the next thing I would do would be.
Okay, before we leave that, a question
Yes.
on the drone.
Yeah.
Does it have to be a trombone, or can I do?
Oh, no.
Like I've got a Dr. Beat but I'm not sure that they're in tune.
Well,
I mean, those are equal tempered pitches.
Here's what I did. An equal temperament is what we're looking for, generally speaking,
Okay.
when we learn how to play, right?
Right.
When we learn how to play with an ensemble, then we're looking for something else. But what I did, and I don't have a copy of it with me, I need to make more copies, is that I went to Finale, and I made a set of drones on Finale.
Ah.
Now, you have to make sure that you choose an instrument that is going to be stable. And so I didn't choose a trombone. I chose an electronic note, a square wave note. And that is more, it's easier to tune to because it's pure. It's more, there aren't a lot of overtones to worry about. No, you're just tuning to that fundamental. And so I made a whole set of drones going from first to seventh and seventh to first and so forth. Now David Schwartz has made some of those. He has a book called Breakfast.
Mm-hmm. I have that.
Yeah, and he's got those on a disc. But I found, no disrespect to David, I found that they were too confining, and so I made a set of drones myself. But you can make a set of drones on anything, and it's always good to do them in octaves. For example, for bass trombone players, you have the drones or the melody parts in an octave higher. But for tenor trombone players, an octave lower.
Yeah.
And they should be recorded pretty loud. Yeah. So there's a lot of intensity.
Not simultaneous octaves, but an
No.
octave below for tenor and an octave above for bass.
And they get used to playing with that. I have a guy who's a student who's 75, and he played in the Oregon Symphony a long time ago and studied with John Coffey. But he's 75, and during the period of time between studying and now, he developed a lot of bad habits, and he was playing with some ensembles that are so good, and so intonation got to be an issue. And I got him working on those drones, and it works. And we do drones in the lesson a lot.
And what instrument again did you
Trombone.
use for Finale?
Oh, I think it was whatever. I think it was just a square tone, or yeah, I think it was just a square tone.
Okay.
Now, if I could get this thing to work, yeah, here it is. You can also set it for this. It's set for a square wave, but you can set it for a sine wave. You can set it for any different kind of sawtooth wave.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is really a valuable thing. Now, play your middle B flat now. Now get it in tune. If you bring it down to the slide, you won't have to do that.
And that's why I don't like tuners, because I was automatically adjusting because I could see it.
Well, I always look away.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so play it over there. And now, you stay, now play the low note. You go too far, come back up. A little louder. If you look at it, you'll notice your sound is not stable.
It's
kind of
wobbly,
wavery,
yeah.
right? So that's one of the things you can do. So let's put now. The next thing we would do, we would drift into the upper register.
Good.
So
you drift, I'll fall.
Then breathe at the top, because we want to get used to breathing and attacking in the upper register. So I usually put one beat at the top. So ba da da da.
Re-articulate. Ta.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's in 3. So Top note's a little sharp. Good.
Oh.
Repeat a second.
What I'm finding is everything is sharp. All my positions are sharp to begin with.
Okay.
Which is already, I mean, this is well worth $175 just to be here.
It's going up. This is great. I like this. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
So the second position. 1, 2. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Play a pedal tone for me. Play pedal B flat. No, nay. Okay, I think one of the things I hear is that you use a very fast airstream, which is great in the middle and upper register, but probably you want to slow it down. Think of it like that warm air, like on your glasses. Think about playing it with the same embouchure as you do a low A, but the jaw comes forward a little more corners down, like a fish face. So you get a firmer note, right? Okay. And sometimes students have a hard time getting to a note. For example, to a pedal G. I have a hard time getting to pedal G. So I run them through this. Okay. Play a low C. Now do this. Lip it down. Okay. Now this. Stay in the trigger and try to keep the note going. Now do it and just flip the trigger. Okay, so by learning how to bend the note down, you're really learning how to play with that same embouchure.
Okay.
But adjusting here, making the fish face.
Now, there's a book I've been using for the last month. It's called Common Sense for Comeback Chops. It's a guy named Ken Ebo. And he uses a lot of false positions and things. Are we doing the same thing here? Where you play E flat without the trigger in false position, so you're just bending your notes.
Yeah, and learning how to bend it can help build chops. There's the guys down in Baltimore. I don't remember which person it was, Randy Campora or one of those guys. Whoever teaches at Peabody, I had a student go to Peabody and said they do this. Right? They'll do bending notes up and down, and it does help to firm your corners and develop your chops.
They're doing that in the trumpet studio up at Keene too. New teacher.
Yeah, who's that?
His name's Fred Sienkiewicz. He just graduated from BU.
No relation to Gary though.
No, none. I asked. He said no.
Yeah. Okay, good. So this is basically what we do for a warm up, and then if we're down in that register, then I'll have people play from Bloom. Do you know the Bloom book?
Oh, Bloom, yeah, the green book.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Oh.
Whatever color it is now.
Yeah.
And play bass trombone etude, right? Because they're already down there, you might as well do it. Then, are you familiar with the Edwards books?
Brad Edwards?
Yeah.
Yeah, the simple, I have that with me, the simple melodies or whatever, I use
Right.
that every day.
But have you ever used the one that teaches clefs?
No.
It's called Before Blazevich. I don't think I've got it with me. I should have gotten it from one of my students.
But that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, it's the best thing about the book. I have Blazevich. I got his lip slurs. Oh, let's do one of these. These are great.
Is this the Brad's?
This is Brad Edwards' lip slurs.
Yeah.
This book is incredibly indispensable, and not only because it has lip slurs that are really sensible, and he has a great way of sequencing things so that it can be pretty progressive, and it goes from very simple to extremely complicated. But he has written a series of 20 exercises that are all lip slurs.
They're actually big enough to see too.
Yeah. So now you have to use the occasional alternate position, but so the whole thing. Now, what do you think? What do you think the value of that is?
It isolates the embouchure, so you're not having to deal with articulation getting in the way.
Right. And so, you know, what most of the workshops that I've been to, or any of the great orchestral players who have done workshops, they'll say, if you want to learn something really well, take out one of the components. Right. In this case, it's tonguing. Right. And so what we're doing here is we're learning how to play with a continuous sound, so that when we do add the tongue, we still have a continuous sound.
Yeah.
Right? And it's great for breath control and intonation and all of that kind of thing. And you'll notice at one point I kind of made a mistake and I played. You know, there's so the slide was too slow. So that's another thing it does. It works on slide speed, and it also prevents you from bending pitches when you go up and down, right? Which gets to be a problem too. It gets that syrupy sound.
Right.
Okay, so let's try to play this one. 1A. Can you see it? Okay.
Yep.
2. Yeah, there you go. Okay, the whole book is like that, and he does. Sometimes he'll do the same thing like this one in a different key. Right, and this one he does in 2 different keys. And the best thing about them, the best thing about everything he does, is he writes interesting melodies. I mean, to make a melody out of just all lip slurs is tough.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I'm old, so I remember the article that said use the natural horn as much as possible, because the trigger, back in the day before open rap and everything else, will affect the tone quality to the point that you always want to stay. So that was always stuck in my head. Well, it seems like in this book, and when I've seen Brad play, he uses C and B natural. He uses the trigger more than 6th and 7th position. How about you? I use trigger probably. I use C more than C and 6th because it's cumbersome. I mean, that's why you have and B there too.
but I don't use F here, and I sometimes will use E in seventh if I have to play really loud, really have to lay on something.
So it can,
I use it in the seventh
yeah.
Instead of the trigger. I would say I use the natural horn more. I use it almost exclusively going up in the upper register. I don't use a lot of alternate positions, but I make all my students learn them.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of places where, for example, if you do the Saint-Saëns Symphony No. 3 excerpt, instead of I use that trigger B flat because it's such a touchy thing. I mean, when you have to play it in context and in an audition, you don't want to be doing. So you don't want to move the slide a lot.
Right. And it also takes out, it makes a natural articulation on the first two pitches. So
Yeah, that's right.
That works better that way.
First three pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah. A four. Then the only thing you have to worry about is the C, and you can go out to six if you want.
My thought also was, I mean, these are so much superior to the rotary valves that we used to play on. The difference in tone is not that as strong as it had been.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a little bit like the use of alternate positions and all of that. For example, I have a friend who when he plays the Mozart Requiem, how does he do it? He plays that. He plays in fifth.
Huh.
And I have students play. Instead of
the opening or so.
Because it's so hard to get that extra partial out.
Right.
Right.
So
it's a matter of what is the piece of music, how do you want it to sound, legato tongue is another example. There are people say, oh, you always use legato tongue. You only use legato tongue when it's, when there's no natural slur available. It depends on the music. So philosophically, that's where I stand on all that, Okay, so then for technical studies, there's so many things that you can use. With younger students, I have taken to using the Perez scale studies.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Because they are kind of comprehensive. But for a technical exercise that you can carry around in your pocket, I think I think this is a Remington thing too. Something like that as a kind of a pocket method. And for technical things, I use the Arvin, Terrell. Do you know Terrell?
I have a copy of it. I've never used it.
Terrell's good. Obviously, Blas.
Do you have another philosophy, another thing that's not written down someplace, something personal that you? I mean, we can't hit them anymore.
Yeah, no, you can't anymore. Oh, the old days. I think first of all, I don't get doctrinaire about things. This is the way it has to be. But I do expect somebody to cooperate with me if I say, try it this way, try it that way, try it the other way. The whole idea is here's what it is. My job is to teach somebody how to be their own teacher. Right? And how to play music in a certain way. In certain ways, in different styles and so forth. I do try to teach lyrical playing, and here are a couple of conventions that I talk about. One, my students will laugh at. No, it's called crescendo in a box. Okay, now you play an A. Nice and even. Where's it going? What note is it going to?
B flat.
Does it feel like it's going?
No, it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere.
Does it feel like it's going someplace?
Yeah.
You don't know where, but it's
Right,
going
it's
someplace,
good, yeah.
right? Why does it feel like it's going someplace?
There's a difference in intensity.
Right.
It's
okay.
not as much volume as it is intensity,
Right.
too.
So I call it crescendo in a box. I make a little square, and then I put a crescendo inside of it. That crescendo is trapped inside of that box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just has, there's this tension between the note getting louder and not wanting to make a crescendo. So that when you play any given brochure etude, I'll just start at the beginning. I know. Oh, yes, there's another thing I wanted to tell you too. Okay, so number 3. Right? If you play it with everything being even, which is what people talk about all the
Right.
time. There's no direction. So you want to play with direction. The way you play with direction, the easy explanation for me to them is the crescendo in a box. That you increase the intensity of the note, right? And that you try to make that intensity ebb and flow without getting soupy about it, without it, right? So that's one of the things. Something that almost everyone will tell you that they do these days is with the brochures and with many other things, by changing the clefs, people could work on their range. So, for example, I'll take this one and play just the beginning of it because I often don't have the same kind of time a lot of people do. And I'll play it that way and now. Tenor clef. Then alto clef. Then alto clef down an octave. Right, and then up an octave. Then so students should get to the point where they can play an etude like that at least 2 or 3 different ways, right?
Okay.
Bass clef, tenor clef, down an octave. Those are the standard ones, and it's useful as a teacher to do that because often you want to be able to show your students how it sounds in a different range. Bass trombone players got to learn how to play things not only down an octave, but down an octave and a fourth or whatever.
Right.
And so that's pretty valuable. That's pretty valuable. My overall philosophy about music is that if it doesn't say something, it's not worth doing. Right? There are a lot of trombone players, great trombone players, who as one of my former students says, they're trombone operators, you know, and they're great trombone operators, but it's not enjoyable to listen to. And I will direct my students, listen to violinists and cellists and so forth. We don't have to play like trombone players. We can play music too. You know? But it's true that there are things that we play where we don't use vibrato because blah blah, and we don't do certain kinds of rubato and so forth. And even though if a violinist or a cellist played it, they would. Right? And so there are a lot of things that we don't do because we're trombone players. And the reason we don't do them because we're trombone players is because trombones in the past maybe couldn't do them. But we can. Everyone can now. I mean, the quality of trombone playing has increased so much that there's no excuse for someone not to be able to do most everything. I mean, I've seen the students coming into the studio when they leave. It seems like every class is better than the next, and the orchestral people. I hear orchestral auditions all the time, and those players are great. I mean, you could stand with your back to them, throw a brick, and whoever it hits in the head gets the job. Yeah. If he survived the brick. So, and you could come away with a great player. It's really gotten to that point. It's like this. It's like digital technology, just an explosion. And you know, it started, I think, with Remington and his students deciding that the trombone could be a lyrical instrument. It didn't have to sound like a fast duck. And now to people like Joe Alessi demanding of his students a much higher quality of playing than has been before. And there's really a new sound of trombone playing that's a little different. It's less baritonish and it's got a lot. It's a creamier sound, you know. So you find guys like Jorgen van Ryn and Nissan Haros and people like that who have these really beautiful creamy sounds, you know. And there's a lot of great playing going on there. But if it doesn't do something, if it doesn't reach somebody on a visceral level or an emotional level or even a cerebral level, I do it, you know. So I try to get students to throw off the shackles of being a trombone player and express themselves a little more like a singer,
like a musician.
Yeah, a musician.
Yeah.
So that's the way it is these days.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about those great players, and they all, I don't know, something up in the Scandinavian countries who are just killing it out there.
Well, it's Dennis Wig.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Finland, right, and he was sitting in front of me, and there were all these Swedish trombone players, and they sounded great. And he turned around and said, "You know, those are my grand students. They're all my grand students." You know, because he had a lot of impact upon a lot of the guys who teach there. They study with him, and now, of course, a lot of them are studying with Christian Lindberg.
Right.
Yeah, and they're in a band that plays, you know, every noon in the square, and there's a lot of great playing going on. But there's a lot of great playing going on everywhere.